Hi everyone, thank you for being here. Welcome to an online forum on a healthy planet for the prosperity of all on the subject of innovation for sustainability. Today I will be your host. My name is Satidtanasarn and I am a project manager for the Thailand-Nordic countries Innovation Unit, or in short TNIU. We are an independent unit set up by the Royal Thai Embassies in Stockholm, Copenhagen, Oslo, and Helsinki to solidify collaboration efforts between the Nordic countries and the Southeast Asian region, especially in Thailand. We hope we will be able to host more webinars like this in the upcoming future. So please follow us through our website and our Facebook. We are delighted and honored to be hosting the distinguished panelists today. We hope that everyone will get the most out of today's online forum topic, a healthy planet for prosperity of all, innovation in sustainability. Today's sessions will be sectioned into 3 parts: the call for actions, opening remarks, accelerating green transition. The first session, the call for actions, will include 2 young environmental activists from Thailand and Sweden, who will then address our urgent need to unite and fight against the climate crisis. Secondly, we will have opening remarks by the Minister of Natural Resource and Environment of Thailand, followed by the Ambassador for Stockholm Plus 50 Conference, and ended with a representative from United Nations Development Programme. In the last section, we have 4 panelists selected from various sectors, including private, public, and non-governmental organizations, who will address how they adopt and adapt themselves to accelerating green transition within their businesses and industries. So, without further ado, I would like to first invite Ralyn Satidtanasarn, an environmental youth activist representing Thailand, to talk about her view and call for action. Please welcome Nong Ralyn ครับ
Hello, thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. My name is Ralyn Satidtanasarn, and I am a 14-year-old youth environmental activist from Thailand. And for the last 5 years of my activism, I have been working with government ministries, large retailing companies, and other like-minded organizations to create meaningful environmental change. And throughout all these activities, I have become a spokesperson for the youth of Thailand and the world, fighting for a clean and sustainable future. And throughout my years of activism, I've talked to more people in power than I can count. But unfortunately, that was all we were doing, talking. There was no action being taken to support their claims and the pleas of the youth. But from my experience, I've learned that action needs to be taken to create meaningful change, and it has to be communal. Everybody has to work together in order to protect our world. Both social and corporate worlds must come together and collide to do the best thing that is needed for our environment. And the best thing to do is to take the first step. And it is better to be the first person to change than the last person to change. And so my call to action is to ask all corporates and corporations to make a pledge and act on it. Corporates need to pledge to lower their environmentally impactful business strategies, reducing the amount of fossil fuels, single-use plastic, and energy they use to create their products. And with this first step, we can achieve the most important lead to change, a change in mindset. Rethinking the way we do things in our linear economy world is the first and most important step to create change. And I had noticed the environmental damage capitalism was bringing to the world when I was only about 8 years old. And during that time, I wrote letters to the government. I asked my mother to send emails to large corporations to try to ignite some sort of difference. And I grew frustrated with the lack of difference I made. And as I pushed forward in my activism until now, when I have become a UN Youth Panelist and successfully contributed to the 2020 countrywide plastic bag ban in Thailand, I am still frustrated with the lack of difference I have made, and in the future I will make. Because I, as one person, even though I have been given the opportunity and privilege to work and create mass change like this, I can assure you there is but a few obstacles individuals can push through with the right motivation to create a difference. But as an individual action is not enough to create the change to save the world. We need to strive for mass change, and with mass change, we need collective global action to work together as citizens of not different countries, but citizens of the world. Climate change is a global issue, therefore we must treat it as such. I am a member of the youth, and I and many of my peers have been pushed out of this conversation when the youth is going to be the most affected by these issues at hand. When I spoke to corporations, they told me that I shouldn't expect to make a difference as an individual, and that is true. I expect the government and corporations to listen to my call to action and the pleadings of the youth for our tomorrow. And I must admit, the work of activism can be quite isolating at times when trying to turn the heads of people who refuse to see you. But I feel the most empowered when I am marching alongside my peers. For example, in 2019, I did the same thing when striking and protesting for the youth and our right to a clean future. And I believe we can do that now. We can work together and do the same, but on a corporate level. This is a global fight. Corporations matter more than anything to be the trailblazers to action. Corporations, the government, have the resources to impact. Businesses can make a difference, such as sponsoring non-government organizations, making internal sustainable changes to business structure, and donate to the charities that are most damaged by these sectors. And I just would like to stress again that this needs collective action. We must work together and not against each other to ignite the change. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ralyn. You are such an inspiration to all of us and to many of the Thai youth and youth all around the world. We applaud you for your activism. Thank you again for such an inspirational speech. We as adults, we must do more to collectively fight against climate crisis. So next, we have Björn Fondén, an official UN youth representative from Sweden for Stockholm Plus 50, who will talk about what the young generation expects from government and business sectors in accelerating the green transition. Björn, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and Sawadika. My name is Björn Fondén. I'm 25 years old and part of the Stockholm Plus 50 Youth Task Force. It's a great pleasure to join you today directly from here, the international meeting in Stockholm, Sweden, where 50 years ago, world leaders met to set out the priorities and promises to protect the environment and safeguard our future. Unfortunately, 50 years the next coming decade, we're moving towards a hothouse Earth and unstoppable feedback effects with ever-increasing costs. Every year we delay our action, both for mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damages, and the growing address the triple planetary crisis we are in. As the Stockholm Plus 50 Youth Task Force, we have developed a global youth policy paper, setting out the priorities from young people across the world, asking governments, business leaders, cities, and other stakeholders for concrete outcomes of the Stockholm Plus 50 meeting and beyond, to establish an international fossil fuel treaty, to finally deal with the elephant in the room and truly start the phase out of fossil fuels in a socially fair way, taking all perspectives into account. We are also calling for the establishment of a new global roadmap on inclusive circular economy, built on renewable energies and resource recycling, recognizing that our current financial and economic system is not fit for purpose, as it delivers GDP growth above human and environmental well-being. And finally, also criminalizing large-scale environmental destruction, ecocide, putting in place international laws under the Rome Statute to address this issue. And I believe in the context of business, as much as we need to talk about innovation and new technologies, we also really need to start talking about the issues of corruption, financial inequalities, and tax evasion. Today, billions of dollars, both from Thai, Swedish, and other international businesses, are flowing to tax havens, ending up in the pockets of corrupt politicians and impeding sustainable development. So if we here today really want to ensure that the benefits of these innovations go towards those who really need it and create a socially just transition for everyone that we so urgently need, we also need to put in place measures to address these, the most difficult issues we face. And we know it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be without issues, but we need to do it as it's the only way forward that will leave us all better off. So I really urge you all to, first of all, read our global youth policy paper, to reflect we don't have time to wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Björn. That was a great speech and a call for action. It is really great to have you as a representative for Stockholm Plus 50. Like you said, we need to address the big elephants in the room and make sure that social equality is at the central focus. And we hope that the outcome of Stockholm Plus 50 will do just that. So thank you for being here, both to Ralyn and to Björn for the call for action. Now I would like to move on to the opening remarks from His Excellency, Mr. Varawut Silpa-archa, the Minister of Natural Resource and Environment of Thailand, who will talk about the role of government in the green transition. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us live today, but we have his pre-recorded video to show everyone. So please welcome His Excellency, Mr. Varawut Silpa-archa.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Sawasdee krap, and a very good afternoon to you all from Bangkok, Thailand. I would like to begin today by expressing my sincere appreciation to the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm, together with Thailand-Nordic Countries Innovation Unit, for inviting me to join the timely and important seminar on a healthy planet for the prosperity of all today. It was grateful that during the Stockholm Conference 50 years ago, the global community has made the environment a major issue for humankind. But it is also regrettably that we still have carelessly enjoyed and exploited the nature and the environment without listening to the repeated warning signals sent over time. The world is now facing the most challenging threat on the back of cascading socio-economic impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic, raging geopolitical conflicts, and the climate crisis. Neither Thailand nor Sweden nor other countries on this planet can escape from these threats. It is our responsibility to solve the problems we have caused in order to hand down the healthy planet to our children, grandchildren, and the next generations to come. They should not be and must not be responsible for the problems we created. For Thailand, we always take our responsibility to the nature and the environment. The Royal Thai government has committed to leave no one behind. The Bio-Circular Green Economic Model, or BCG model, focuses on the balance of all things through advancing technology and innovation. It's introduced as the key blueprint to reinvigorate the strength of the country while we empower the people towards sustainable development. As you may know, that Thailand is one of the most biodiversified countries in the world, and we are also one of the world's top 10 producers of many important agricultural products. With this strength, Thailand has been recognized as the kitchen of the world, which certainly have significant impact on the environment, social and economy's challenges. However, we cannot continue with the conventional agricultural practices. The agri-technological innovations based on our local wisdoms, or I called it agri-tech with roots, must be promoted countrywide. For example, the new technique of alternate wetting and drying control of water level in the rice field in order to reduce the methane emission, together with the purely organic farming practices, have been reaching out to numerous farming households across the country. I strongly believe that agri-technology with roots can help feeding more people, increasing saving for farmers, businesses and households, while reducing pressure on the nature and environment. Furthermore, the Prime Minister General Prayut Chan-o-cha has reiterated our responsibility to safeguard our planet by announcing the ambitious targets to pursue carbon neutrality by 2050 and net zero GHG emissions by 2065, based on the, of course, adequate and timely technology and financial support, as well as capacity building from our international alliances. Thailand, however, must swiftly enhance our own knowledge and capacity in creating and implementing innovations and technologies to tackle climate crisis and other environmental concerns. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment has been working with all sectors to ensure the integration of these targets into the key national strategies, policies and plans, especially the 13th National Economic and Social Development Plan, which spans from 2023 until 2027, and the National Energy Plan, which emphasizes on the strategy of 4D and 1E, which are digitization, decarbonization, decentralization, deregulation, and electrification. Given that Thailand is an important automotive manufacturing hub in Southeast Asia, the specific target of 30% of electric vehicle production by 2030 is also set. Moreover, we are determined to increase the share of renewable energy up to 37% by 2037. As Paris Agreement is now already in effect, mankind has duty and responsibility to substantially reduce the global greenhouse gas emission in an attempt to limit the global temperature increase down to 1.5 degrees Celsius. I personally believe that the great opportunity comes with great responsibility. The carbon credits, or green gold in my own term, seems to be our great opportunity in accelerating green transition, not only in the energy and industrial sectors, but also in the area of forestry. Currently, there are companies, both domestic and multinational, showing their intention to engage in forest plantation, which will eventually lead to the investment in carbon sink and removals. The relevant rules and procedures for carbon markets and trading are formulating as we speak. The government is also in the process of creating sufficient fiscal space for greater investment in sustainable development. I sincerely believe that during the next decade, we will definitely shift from the era of black gold to green gold. And once we are entering the era of green gold, just imagine, should we consider the issue of green coin? Definitely. I am confident that through blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, we would be able to generate the revenue for the people in the locals while safeguarding the global environment. Ladies and gentlemen, the government's role in green transition is indeed required, but stakeholders' participation, especially voices and actions from the younger generations, is extremely crucial in driving towards the betterment of our planet for the prosperity of all. In this regard, Thailand stands ready to cooperate with Sweden and all stakeholders in grabbing the great opportunity while accelerating the green transition. Thank you and ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณครับ Thank you very much, His Excellency Mr. Varawut. It was such a great honor to have you with us for the opening event. So next, I would like to welcome Ambassador Johanna Lissinger, the Ambassador of Stockholm Plus 50, who will talk about Stockholm Plus 50 and the way towards sustainable prosperity. Ambassador Johanna, the stage is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you also to the organizers for having invited me. And in a way, I actually feel that previous speakers has already spoken about Stockholm Plus 50 and the pathway to prosperity, because it's exactly what we have heard in the call for actions from Björn and from Ralyn for the previous speakers. It's these kinds of calls for bold actions, recommendations that we are hoping to hear from member states, from civil society during the next 2 days in Stockholm to ensure a strong and actionable outcome. But since I have been given the opportunity to speak, I will take the opportunity also to convey some of the messaging that we hear. And a healthy planet for the prosperity of all, our responsibility, our opportunity, that is very much the vision for Stockholm. I think all of the previous speakers have already addressed both the matter of responsibility and the matter of the opportunity. And I feel also quite sure that speakers further down this event will address the very same. And it is also with this vision in mind that we are once again gathering in Stockholm 50 years after the first UN conference on the UN environment. If 1972 was very much about creating the institutions as UNEP, it was about creating the fundament in a rules-based environment law with the Stockholm Declaration, the World Environment Day. Stockholm plus 50, we live in a time where we very much have the blueprint for action through the 2030 agenda, through the Paris Agreement, through what we just have launched, an INC for a new instrument on plastic pollution, through an ambitious framework on biological diversity. So we know what the path is, but we still need to do a lot. And it's also therefore that Stockholm plus 50 is not about creating the new institutions or the new commitments, but really about accelerating actions of what we have already agreed to. And I think also Björn quite elegantly in his call for action said that it's not an easy journey. It will require some difficult decisions, some difficult priorities. It also needs to be a just and peaceful transition. But signs are very clear. We have to do more. We have to act faster. The UN Secretary General, in his report on our common agenda, also presented Stockholm plus 50 as an opportunity to redefine humankind's relationship to nature. And there is still time to turn the tide, but it needs to happen with, I think, an unprecedented speed and scale. And we will not succeed in this transition, and other speakers have already addressed this issue also, if we are not to expand a variety of voices contributing to the transition and including more voices in this. Youth, meaningful youth participation, not just meaningful youth participation in the sense of decision making, but youth as innovators, as change makers, which I think also Ralyn spoke about in her call for action very elegantly. We will also not succeed if we don't strengthen the dialogue between public and private sectors. Previous speakers has addressed this too already. And in that context, I will continue my afternoon, for example, in roundtable on financing plastic circularity around those issues. We had another event this morning on transition of heavy industry, which is also very much kind of visualizing those partnerships that needs to happen. We also see quite strongly that the political leadership needs to be there and needs to provide the directions and the conditions for the long term, because that is what we very much hear from business side, that you need the steering signals to be able to invest. In the time leading up to Stockholm plus 50, we have heard a strong call for the need to accelerate system-wide transformation in many ways. And system-wide transformation in the sense of transforming high impact value chain sectors through adopting circularity and resource efficiency. And I took note on the suggestions also on the new global roadmap for circularity. We know that the youth policy paper has a lot of suggestions here also. We have heard the importance in that sense also of strengthening resilience for micro and small and medium-sized enterprises. We heard the importance of this in education, reskilling has been mentioned. So there is a lot of strong messaging on how and what we need to do as this. Let me also just before I conclude, I think, draw the attention to the Action Hub, which is part of Stockholm plus 50. So for those who are here during this week, I would also urge you to visit the Action Hub, which is very much a multi-stakeholder, with the intent of looking on the importance of transition of high impact value change. And the innovation, of course, will be crucial here. As co-president together with Kenya for Stockholm Plus 50, it is very much our hope that over the coming 2 days, governments and civil society will make a joint and very strong call for a system-wide transformation where investing in the planet means investing in people, and where prosperity and a healthy environment means prosperity for all, leaving no one behind. So with that, I would like to conclude, but I would also just like to, I think, refer to Ralyn's and Björn's comments, that some of the things that you mentioned today fits very well into what I will be spending the rest of my afternoon and week for. And I will try to do my absolute utmost to bring those messages in to all of the meetings that I'm having during these 2 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Johanna. Just like you said, science is clear. We must do more, and Stockholm Plus 50 will be the opportunity for humankind to redefine our relationship with the nature. And we must do more in an unprecedented speed, of course. So thank you again for being with us today, and we wish you a very successful roundtable negotiation you will be having later this afternoon and in the upcoming days. So thank you. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Renaud Meyer, the United Nations Development Programme Resident Representative for Thailand, who is here with us today to talk about the national consultations for Stockholm Plus 50 in Thailand. And we are pleased to have you on board, Mr. Renaud. Now the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Kun Suti, Sawadee-kap, and very good afternoon to everyone in Stockholm, here in Thailand, and everywhere else. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to join you all from Bangkok. And I'd like to thank the Royal Thai Embassy, Ambassador Kanchana and her team, and the people behind this event for inviting UNDP and for entrusting to UNDP the role of bringing the voice of the communities. And this is really what this consultation was all about. And it's a consultation that was made possible by the generous contribution and support of the government of Sweden. And they had selected, together with UNDP, 57 countries around the world to empower UNDP offices in those countries to engage in a process of national consultations, to really go back to the Stockholm event in 1972 and look at what has happened, both the negative trends that we, of course, are all much aware of, but also the wake-up calls, the beginning of a multilateral and global process of taking responsibility and setting a course that unless we follow, and as the Secretary General Gutierrez has said many times, we would really run towards our extinction as human beings on this planet. The national consultation in Thailand, we decided to ensure that it would be as inclusive as possible. So in addition to, of course, holding both online and physical events in Bangkok, the capital city, with a lot of government officials, but also activists and civil society representatives, private sector businesses, we also decided to go towards the communities. Thailand is a beautiful country, as everybody knows, but also very diverse in its various ecosystems. And from the ecosystem derives different challenges. So we felt it would have been important to go towards the communities. And we undertook 2 additional consultations in addition to Bangkok, one in the north in Chiang Mai, where we have a very rich set of biodiverse ecosystem with communities, many communities of ethnic origin who live and rely heavily on natural resources for their source of livelihoods. And then we also went to Phang Nga, a beautiful province on the Andaman coast and the Gulf of Thailand, who heavily relies on tourism and on agriculture, and therefore also very much depending on the quality of the environment. In addition to those consultations with communities and local actors, we engaged in an online survey through different social media platforms to consult the general public with a questionnaire that was prepared globally, but translated in Thai to ensure full participation. And we've decided, in light of also what we saw today, and congratulations again for the organizers to start this discussion this afternoon with 2 youth representatives, to have a youth consultation. We believe that it's extremely important to give voice to youth people, young people from Thailand, who we know have been extremely vocal about the need for climate action, the need to conserve biodiversity resources. And this consultation is not stopping. And that's also a little bit the spirit of the whole consultation process. We did not want to have a consultation just for the sake of Stockholm Plus 50. We wanted to leverage this opportunity to piggyback and link to the broader efforts of all the stakeholders and partners to development in Thailand to re-accelerate after the very difficult 2 years plus of the pandemic, to regain assurances towards the achievement of the SDGs, and particularly, of course, of SDGs 13, 14, 15, very much at the heart of the Stockholm Plus 50 discussion. So the surveys and the consultations with youth actually continue and will continue to the end of the month to lead towards the Thailand Climate Action Conference that is scheduled in Bangkok in August, and to the preparation of COP15 on biodiversity and COP27 later this year in Sharm el-Sheikh on UNFCCC. So really an integrated process. And what has this all delivered? Well, very important messages. But the one anecdote that I thought would be important for us to remember, it goes back to youth. I opened actually the youth consultation with a kind of a quiz. I read to the young audience a quote, and I asked them where they thought that quote was from. And I won't go, because for lack of time, I won't do the same exercise with all of you, but it was really interesting because it was actually a quote of the final resolution of the 1972 Stockholm Conference. And when you read it, it actually could have been written at COP26, for example, which in a way, you know, is very sad and frustrating, because we were discussing with the young people in Thailand that what does that mean? It means that the generations that are today in power and those before basically have failed the young people of delivering a more resilient, a better prepared world to face the impact of climate change, which in 1972 we were starting to see already. And this was the core message of the Stockholm Conference outcome document, of alerting governments, stakeholders of what was coming towards, and sad to say, very little had been done. But, you know, despite all this, the consultations in Thailand have delivered very, very important messages. And I've just, you know, want to summarize them in 4 main key few sentences. The first one, and we heard it in the message of Minister Varawut, is the relevance of 2 very important frameworks for development here in Thailand. The first one dates several decades and was formulated by the late King Rama IX, and that's the sufficiency economy philosophy, which at its core has a lot of the messages around sustainability, around resilience, about empowering the communities, you know, to adapt to their ecosystem and not expect the ecosystem to adapt to their search of always more and more prosperity. And the second one, much more recent, which is in a way the response of the government in terms of vision to the pandemic, is this biocircular green model. And I think there was really a large consensus among the participants to those consultations of the relevance of those 2 frameworks to frame the development and the recovery from the pandemic around all the issues that Stockholm Plus 50 is looking at. The second very important message was around the need to have an integrated approach, a holistic approach to the issues. So it's not just about climate or biodiversity or pollution. It's really about re-looking at the definition and the relationship between people, planet, and prosperity. Right? How do we rebalance those 3 very fundamental pillars of our existence on this planet to really look at sustainable solutions, nature-based solutions that still allow people to prosper, but not at the cost of depleting natural resources, endangering, therefore, the survival of the next generation. So holistic, integrated approach was really what was called for by all the stakeholders and the people involved in the consultations. Local action. That was a clear, loud call from all the communities. And they really appreciated the effort of going towards the communities out of the capital city and to really learn how to differentiate the solutions, right? To really look at tailoring solutions that are most relevant and not just, go by the book or do, a one-size-fits-all approach, but listen, take the time to listen to the communities, learn from their on-the-ground basic experiences, and not just rely on one source of origin for the solutions to be put forward. So local action, empowering communities, making sure that we listen to the communities when defining policies and way forward. And the fourth one was, again, very much linked to this last point, the importance of partnerships. Right? And how government alone, and we heard that the minister is required, but cannot be sufficient. How the action of the public sector is key. But again, without the business and the private sector, it will be very difficult to move forward. Which takes me then to the second point, which is the role of the business. And I'm very happy to see Roongrote, who will be part of the panel, because the Siam Cement Group is one of those companies, like many other big companies here in Thailand, who I would say have been avant-gardistes, have been pioneers of a very strong understanding that the profitability and the economic growth, the sustainability, will very much depend on also appreciating the relationship of those companies and their business practices with the ecosystem in which they operate. Now, what we've seen in Thailand is really a strong mobilization of the business sector. I would say who are even more ambitious in a way than the government. They're really pulling the government forward. And I'm sure we'll hear more from this in the panel discussion. But it's this public-private partnerships for a better environment that is so critical, because we need to mobilize the know-how, the experiments, but also, of course, the financing of the private sector to fund those nature-based solutions. We've seen that companies are critical, but they're not enough. Right? The reality of the economy in Thailand is very much around small and medium-sized enterprises. And what they need is supporting mechanism. So here again, you have an important role for the government, but also very fundamentally, you have a role for business associations, the Federation of Thai Industries, the Thai Chamber, the Global Compact Network, etc. And professional organizations, of course, also very, very important. At local level, the local chapters of the FTI and of the Thai Chamber have to play a really leading role at motivating, guiding, supporting small and medium-sized enterprises so that they are also given the support they need to adapt to this very fast changing environment and to become more resilient, better prepared to face the impact of climate change and contribute less, adopt low carbon practices, make sure that they reduce their carbon footprint. I want to say 2 words on innovation very quickly, because it's also fundamental. But by innovation, we should not limit it to technologies, to digital solutions. I think innovation, when you go back to the definition of the world, just means doing something in a new way. It doesn't need to have, billions of bahts of investments in technologies, right? It's also about learning how to listen to local wisdom. It's also rethinking the involvement of communities in decision-making, right? So innovation in that sense has to be looked at way more than just, digital technology-driven solutions. Of course, they are critical, right? They help to reduce the emissions. We need to invest, in those technologies. We've heard about EVs in the Minister Varawut's speech, extremely important. But again, technology is not going to be sufficient. We need to innovate in many other ways. And one example is on financing, and I'll finish here. The FTI has committed, together with the government, to establish the FTI salary for the non-Thais, the Federation of Thai Industries, an innovation fund that will be funded fairly generously by both private sector and government, and that will be managed to allocate grants to especially small and medium-sized enterprise who will commit to radically change their business practices and looking at a number of criteria to reduce their carbon footprint, to develop low carbon levels of productions, of ways of creating growth and produce, but with a much better informed and less costly to the environment approach. So these are just, and I'm sorry I've gone very fast, but I really wanted to give you a comprehensive overview of what's happening at the level of a country like Thailand, where I think consensus today exists on not only what needs to be done, but the speed at which it needs to be done. So we're very encouraged, of course, by the commitment of the government to the 250 and 265 targets of carbon neutrality and zero net emissions, but it will require so much more work. And as long as we involve everyone in the delivery of those solutions, tapping into the academe, the business sector, the local communities, and of course, the government to set up policy and fiscal incentives and drive the whole process in a coordinated approach, I want to stay optimist. And I want the youth to continue giving us a hard time, holding us accountable, and making sure that by giving them the platform and the voice, they will keep us on our toes and never give up. So Björn and Ralyn, thank you so much for pushing us. Don't let us fall asleep anymore, because we've slept too long for 50 years, and now we wake up to a nightmare, and action is more than ever needed. Kapung kap.
Mr. Renaud. Thank you very much. It was great to have you here with us today, and it's great to hear how the consultations in Thailand heavily involve the local communities who are very dependent on the natural environment, and especially the youth groups who will inherit the world after us. So it's good that they put a fire for us. And we are very happy to hear that the voices is incorporated and that it will be heard internationally. And like you said, we need a holistic and integrated approach in strengthening the local action, empowering community, and having a strong global partnership for all sectors to support the green transition. So thank you again for being here with us today. Khop kun krab. So without further ado, now I would like to move on to the next session. This session, we will have 4 panelists who will present how the businesses and or industry have been taking the issues of climate crisis into their equation, and also how they are adapting to the change of in planning on accelerating the green transition through innovation in sustainability, to be specific. So our four panelists today will include Mr. Svante Axelsson from Fossil-Free Sweden, Mr. Roongrote Rangsiyopash from SEG Thailand, Mr. Peter Björk from Thai-Swedish Chamber of Commerce, and lastly, we also have Ms. Emma Wiking from Business Sweden. So now first I would like to invite Mr. Svante Axelsson, who is a national coordinator for Fossil-Free Sweden. Today, Svante will tell us more about the roles of businesses and how they can promote climate transition and also fossil-free future in Sweden. So Svante, welcome to the forum.
Thank you. Nice to be with you. And I'm sitting here in the conference local, and we have just discussed industrial transformation globally. So it's a very interesting phase to be part of this transformation. And I will briefly give you a picture of what's happening in Sweden just now. Fossil-Free Sweden is a governmental initiative to speed up the tempo of the transition to the fossil-free economy, you can say. And we want to be, together with other countries, of course, the first fossil-free welfare nation. And that's very important to stress the word welfare. It could be easy to be fossil-free, but you have to combine it with a better life, a more attractive future. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. And we have invited different sectors, industrial sectors, to tell us how they will develop their sectors and how they can increase their competitiveness by being fossil-free. So we have changed we have twisted the argumentation. You say, how can you increase the competitiveness? That's the first question. And then by being fossil free. And then we see another story, and a more optimistic story. And I'm really surprised myself that we have so strong industrial leaders that now are in hurry, both of course, the situation on the planet, but also they risk to lose the market because the demand is easing so very fast, because people want to survive, of course, and they will pay more and more to rescue this planet. So in that perspective, we have now a lot of storytellings, because one major obstacle in changing the society is that people in the streets often believe that they are more afraid of changing the society than afraid of climate change. So in a short perspective, we need to be very, very clear how their life will be better. Otherwise, they want to wait for other countries. And we know this negotiation processes has been very, very slowly, because we talk about burden sharing, cost sharing, pain sharing. And in that perspective, it's very difficult to change the world. But we have a new logic, a new argumentation, and it's not a dream. We see it now day by day, how we can increase the welfare in Sweden to all people in Sweden by being fossil free. And in that case, we don't want to wait for anyone. We want to go first, because it's good for us, and it's good for the people, and good for the job, it's good for the growth. And I think that has shocked many people. Is that really true? Is it so easy? It was so difficult for 10 years ago, and now you talk about that it's easy. Yes, the technology is much, much more developed and much, much more cheap. If you look at solar energy, wind energy, battery, electric cars, hydrogen, it's much, much cheaper. We've talked about perhaps 70, 80, 90% cheaper than was in Paris. So it's much easier to talk about the transition now. And that's why we have got so many, like 22 different roadmaps has been produced. And they can now tell us how they want to be fossil free. And they want that, but they need also help from the state, but not so much money. It's more about infrastructure and how we can support the demand side in a different way. But it's very, very cheap if you look how much money they want, because they will earn money if they can transform. And we know that, of course, the first one was the fossil-free steel innovation. And it's very interesting to see, because the first roadmap they wrote was that they want to be that, they believe 2045, it will be possible. But when they started this process and see what the technology could give them, they have now sharpening this and say, we can be fossil-free 2030 in the whole company, and even in different companies in Finland. So we see many roadmaps now can produce more ambitious targets, more ambitious steps than we thought for just 2-3 years ago. So in that case, we also have a strong support from, more or less all parties want to support the industrial revolution. It's of course more risky if we talk about changing the lifestyles. But if we want to talk about transform these industrial sectors with support from the unions and the local municipalities, then we have another story. And that's I think the most important export products for Sweden. It's a story. It's that we now can change and that we can produce fossil-free welfare. So this different roadmaps, aviation, they say we are going to be fossil-free aviation in Sweden 2030. Agriculture say we want to be fossil-free 2030. The constructions sector say that we can reduce emissions by 50% 2030. And it gives us also a value chain. And I think the value chain is the most magic thing nowadays, because it's very little cost for the final consumer. Even if you have very costly steel, cement, concrete, whatever. If there are perhaps 50, 60% more expensive, it's very, very little impact on the houses, on the mobile phones, on the tables, whatever we buy. And so this value chain, they reduce risks and also spread out the benefits. And it's why we can now start to produce fossil-free steel factory, a new one. They have sold half of production before the factory is going. And the same when we talk about the battery factory, they sell the battery before they have started the production. And then we can see that it reduces risks. And it's much easier to go to the bank and to get loan, the low cost, when you have so many startups, contracts. So it's a picture of what we have seen so far in Sweden. And now we are in a hurry and we need to step up and produce more electricity much faster. We need to produce the grid much faster. And we also take some responsibility, like you can say, to take green loans and also guarantees from the states. But it's not so much money. The demand side is the most important. And Scope 3 show us how the market will develop. So it was let's try to give you a short, brief concentrate of what we have done so far.
Thank you, Svante. Thank you for telling us about the Swedish ambition to become the fossil-free welfare nation. We are looking forward to see and learn more about how this ambition is translated into action here in Sweden. The world is definitely watching and learning from you, and we cannot be more excited to be here in Stockholm, actually, and to learn it firsthand. So if you don't mind, now I would like to move on to the next panelist. So thank you so much for being with us today. ขอบคุณครับ So now I would like to invite our second panelist, Mr. Roongrote Rangsiyopash, the President and the CEO of SCG Thailand, who is here with us today from Stockholm to talk about the SCG's passion for net zero transition towards ESG 4+. We are honored to have you here with us today at the embassy in Stockholm, Mr. Roongrote. Now the Zoom stage is yours. ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ Sorry ครับ คุณ Roongrote, we need to unmute you first.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much ครับ คุณสุทธิครับ Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick introduction of SCG, or what formerly known as the Siam Cement Group. Our group is one of the largest industrial conglomerate in Thailand and also ASEAN. Our business comprise of three major business. One is chemicals, second one is cement and building materials, and the third one is packaging. We are operating in Thailand and all countries within ASEAN, including the countries like China and India. Basically, I think you probably asked why industrial company like SCG is now talking about sustainability or climate change and so on. Flatly speaking, because we are part of the problem, in terms of the climate change. As an industrial company, we use natural resource, convert, and make products that basically use and contribute to the progress of the economy. But on the other hand, while we are manufacturing those products, we are generating the greenhouse gas. We are depleting the natural resources. So I do believe that unless we become the part of the solution, we will not have the future to stay in the business world going forward. So that's why, you know, we are committed and we assume responsibility to make sure that we do the business and we move forward in the sustainable manner. You know, our thinking in terms of sustainability, you know, consists of three major problems. One, of course, is the climate change, or what we call the climate emergency today. Secondly is the issue of the social, basically income, the inequality. And thirdly is the degradation of the natural resources. I think those are three major assumptions for our strategy going forward. That's why, you know, we have come up with what we call the terms of ESG, and we have committed to do business and employ this ESG model. E is the environmental, S is social, and G is governance. Basically, you know, we can think of ESG as ESG 4+. This is our strategy going forward. 4+, the number one is starting from net zero. Basically, you know, we have committed to go to net zero by the year 2050, with the immediate goal of reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 20% from the base year of 2020 by the end of the year 2030. This will be done by improvement in the energy efficiency, introduction of the low carbon or low greenhouse gas manufacturing or low greenhouse gas products. At the same time, with the continuation of the investment in the technology like the carbon capturing or the energy, the improvement, for example. And finally is the improvement in terms of, or investment in terms of the natural climate solution. So this is our first pillar in terms of the ESG 4+. The second pillar, of course, is going green. 2 years ago, you know, our green products and service account for about 32% of our total revenues. Today, it's about 45%. And we have committed to improve it to 67% by the year 2030. That's include products like recyclable, the packaging, and also investment in the renewable energies. The third one, the third pillar is what we call reducing inequality. Our commitment is to create 20,000 new jobs for communities and SMEs. Those are the people within the same community and also the people within our value chains by the end of the year 2025. We believe that you know, we won't be able to do our part correctly unless we have this commitment to reduce the inequality as well. As you know, SCG is operating in a lot of emerging economies. And when we talk in terms of with the consumers and with the customers in these emerging markets, it's important that we are not stressing only green, but also making sure that we retrain, reskill, and make a commitment to help in whatever way that we can do to reduce the inequality within the society. The fourth pillar is the enhancing collaboration. For example, we have joint force with the construction industry to create what we call the circular economy construction industry. This is the network of people with like minds with the aims to reduce the waste in the construction, and at the same time, you know, making some investment in order to improve the method of construction. Another example is joining the industry collaboration, like Alliance to End Plastic Waste, or even the circular economy for flexible packaging. Those are the examples of what we call collaboration, not only within the same industry, but also outside our own industry, and also regulators and policy makers as well. Finally, I think this is important to note that even with these 4 pillars of ESG, we won't be able to do it without making sure that we earn the trust from the public. Earning the trust, we use the transparency, because we understand that for the public to believe in what we're doing, to have a kind of patience to stay with us, is also very important that we become transparent to them, making sure that we disclose the information, making sure that we discuss and gain attention, at the same time creating dialogue with all of those stakeholders to make sure that while we're making some improvement, while we're making progress in terms of ESG, the public do understand what we're doing as well. Finally, I like to go back to our origins of the company. Our company was founded 109 years ago by the King Rama VI. At that time, Thailand had no cement. So our company was founded with the intention and the vision to be a part of the development of the country. I think we have committed with this vision and mission. And we do understand that we have responsibility to be a part of the development of the society, of the market, of the countries where we operate in a sustainable way. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณครับ Mr. Roongrote ขอบคุณครับ
ครับ
Thank you, Khab. That was an excellent presentation. It is great to hear from one of the biggest and most successful company in Thailand to have such a strong commitment to green transition. We are very happy to have you here. So thank you very much, Khab.
Thank you.
ขอบคุณครับ Next, we have Mr. Peter Björk, who is joining us from Bangkok. He's the president of the Thai-Swedish Chamber of Commerce, and today he will talk with us about Swedish companies and their solutions and innovations for sustainable development on the prosperity in Thailand. So thank you for being with us today, Peter. Now I will pass the mic on to you.
ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ Thank you, Kunsuti. Excellencies, dear distinguished speakers and guests. And I would like to thank the Thai Embassy, Kun Kanchana, and team in Stockholm for providing this opportunity. And I would like to use my time here to talk a little bit about our chamber, short introduction, and how we engage in this area of sustainability and innovation, but also then mention about some of our member companies, what they are doing. So it will be a little bit of a mix. Thank you. You can take the next, please. Yeah, we are part of Team Sweden in Thailand, and it comprises of the embassy, of course, Embassy of Sweden, and Business Sweden, which we will hear from after me, I think, and the Thai-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. And we cooperate in different projects. We also have continuous updates and dialogue in various areas that concern the business and the Swedish business community here. Thank you. The next, please. I will show you 2 pictures here without going into details. But we have around 90 members today, dropped a little bit during the COVID, unfortunately, but I'm sure that we can regain some of them and reach 100, which is a healthy figure for us. You recognize many of these companies, I'm sure. For example, down to the right, you have IKEA, of course, and Saab, Hitachi, which is actually former ABB company. We have ABB, of course, and Atlas Copco and so on, these big Swedish multinational. But there are also here a few other, you can say, SMEs that have come to Thailand to offer their products and services, not least within the sustainability area, such as energy efficiency and waste and the circular economy. So it's a mix. You can take the next one, please. And there you will see more of these companies. Top in the middle, you have KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, which is one of our long-term partners. Jönköping University, left of them, etc. So this is a mix of companies. And I think we go to the next. Yeah, we were established 1989, so we are around 33 years old, 90 members. As I said, we have three purposes, I would say, in summary: promoting Swedish industrial companies operating in the country here, advocacy work vis-a-vis Thai government and authorities. This is a very important area where we spend a lot of time working with the Thai government and agencies. And of course, also we act as a social network for Swedes and others with connection to Sweden. Next, please. When it comes to the sustainability area, we have some working groups in our chamber. I think it's 4 or 5 now. One of them is the sustainability working group that meets regularly and discuss and propose action in this area. But we are also part of something called the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Thailand, JFCCT, and we have just started a sustainability committee there, also in collaboration with the European Chamber, or EABC as it's short. And the chair for all these, or for both or 3 of these, is Lars Svensson, with a background in IKEA, being responsible for sustainability area in Southeast Asia and Mexico. So this is how we are organized and how we cooperate in the business community. And the next, please. Yeah. So we, Thai-Swedish Chamber of Commerce, we are supporting and participating in advocacy, as I mentioned, exchange and promotion of sustainability-linked events, networks, exhibitions, and talks like this today. And some examples here. The one you see on the picture here will take off next week, and it's the annual Sweden-Thailand Sustainability Development Forum. It's on the 8th of June, and the Embassy of Sweden in Thailand, Business Sweden, and Thai Embassy in Sweden. So thank you for participating next week. So this is a big thing, of course. We also have the Smart Tourist Seminar middle of June at Phuket with the Phuket Hotel Association. This is an initiative that we have been working on for quite some time. And finally there, the third one is the annual Sustainability for Business Forum with the Dutch and French Chamber of Commerce. We have held that around 3 or 4 times, but we had to pause it because of the COVID situation last year. But now we will run it after the summer break sometime. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next. Yeah, you know, when you look to the left here, you see the logos of some of our well-known companies and some newcomers as well. But I think this could have been much wider. But here are some examples then I can say. IKEA, Scania, Billerud Korsnäs within the packaging. Rapid Asia is a social company working with the UN on and other agencies on referendums and different kind of service. ABB, of course, Autoliv, who is in the safety area for the automotive industry. Wallander & Son is a consulting company with Lars Svensson, Tetra Pak, of course. But we could have added here Ericsson and others as well. So examples then of sustainability services, products and solutions. As you know, Sweden excels in the area of innovation, and I agree with the former speaker said that it's not only products, right? It's processes, it's also social innovation. So it can be a variety of things. But here are some tangible examples: food technology, plant technology, plant-based dairy and meat, renewable energy generation, sustainable transportation, and then advisory, impact advisory, and social entrepreneurship, as I mentioned, sustainable home solutions and packaging and distribution, Swedish impact technologies. And if you look at this list, some of you may have relatively easy to pair some of this with the companies to the left or other companies that are not present here on this picture. I would also like to mention another, you can call it then a social initiative, and that is the paternity pledge that the embassy will launch next week, I think, to pledge for 1 month paternity leave in companies. And I think there are 11 companies signed up for the moment, but I will leave that for next week, so I will not go into the details. We also have, of course, various agreements between Swedish universities and Thai universities. I've been working in this area for quite some time myself. KTH and Chulalongkorn is just one example. Okay, I think we can take the next one, the next picture. Yeah, this is something we initiated about 2 years ago. It was an insert in the Bangkok Post English newspaper here in Bangkok, in Thailand. We used to have this National Day double spread in Bangkok Post with a lot of companies joining, but we thought it was a little bit outdated. So we tried this one instead. And here is about only focus on the sustainability relationship between Sweden and Thailand. And we had some important partners here, for example, the AstraZeneca and Mölnlycke Healthcare, two of the companies in the medical sector or medical product sector. We also had a full spread interview with Anna Hallberg in this insert. Anna Hallberg, the Sweden's trade minister. And we will see if we'll come back to this. Talking about sustainability, we try to move away from printed media to electronic media and so on. So I think it may not come back in this form. Okay, thank you. Can we have the next one? Yeah, and here you have something about 3 years ago. We had a 30th anniversary of our chamber, and we had, of course, different activities, gala dinner and so on. But we also had this, it's a plugging session at Bang San, southeast of Bangkok, at the beach there, where we combined then jogging and picking up litter and garbage on the beach And it was led here in the middle by our ambassador, Staffan Herrström at that time. He has now moved over to Turkey, but he kindly joined us as a jogger he is, and very, very close to his heart, this area of sustainability. So that was just another example, and there are more, of course, but I think I stopped there so you get a better idea, I hope, what we are doing as a chamber, engaging with our network and our partners around us, but also that the Swedish companies are, of course, on the forefront in this area, and they are certainly contributing. So with that, I would like to round up and say thank you very much, and thank you for all the speakers and listeners. Thank you. Kapun kap.
ขอบคุณครับ Peter ขอบคุณครับ Peter Björk. Thank you very much for showing us how Swedish companies and communities in Thailand are striving for sustainable solutions through innovation and even through the implementation of circular economies in Thailand. It's really great to hear, and we are looking forward to seeing you next week on June 8th for the Sustainable Development Forum hosted by the Swedish Embassy in Bangkok. So thank you again, Peter, for being here with us today. Now on to our last panelist. We have Miss Emma Wiking with us today at the embassy, at the Thai embassy in Stockholm. Emma is the head of the International Sustainable Business at Business Sweden. And today she will present how we can enable an environment for sustainable investment and perspectives from Swedish businesses. So hi, Emma. Great to have you here with us today. Now the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished members of the Thai delegation, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to be invited to this forum here today and talk about the role of innovation and the importance of cross-border collaboration and the importance of these to accelerate the green transition and limit some of the worst effects of the climate change. And I would also like to mention some insights of what is critical for Swedish companies when they seek new business opportunities abroad. But first, of course, I would like to emphasize on the long and solid history of bilateral collaboration and valuable diplomatic relationships between Sweden and Thailand. This year, we will be celebrating 154 years of diplomatic ties, which really sets the precedence of our bilateral relations and strong business exchange. Sweden has, since 2020, invested more than $170 million in Thailand and has played an active part in Thailand's critical industries, such as automotive, manufacturing, and medical equipment. We're also happy to see some Swedish investments into the Eastern Economic Corridor region in the past years. And one example is the Swedish Space Corporation, who are currently opening up their hub in the APAC hub in the EEC Park in Chonburi. And this was the first international space company to invest in Thailand's Eastern Economic Corridor and will strengthen significantly Thailand's space capabilities. And another example is AB Bröderna Berghart, who creates market-leading randoms for advanced communication equipments. They are currently setting up their operations for this manufacturing plant and will be expected to have their operations running later this year. We have also seen great examples of joint efforts to limit global temperature increases and mobilize support to climate mitigation and adaptation. Both our countries are committed to the Paris Agreement and to Agenda 2030, and we have both formulated national net zero targets. And in this work, Sweden stakeholders are currently collaborating closely with Thai authorities in capacity building for example, sustainable wastewater treatments, and we're actively engaging with Thai industry in finding new resource-efficient methods for production in Thailand's most important manufacturing sectors. And we are, of course, looking forward to continue this work. And tomorrow, world leaders, organizations, and stakeholders from all over the world will gather here in Stockholm to review and discuss how to create a healthy planet for the prosperity of all. As Ambassador Lissinger Peitz stated earlier, Stockholm Plus 50 meeting will act as a springboard for accelerated actions and on how to speed up the transition and deliver on Agenda 2030. And with only 8 years left to agenda to 2030, I would like to stress the importance of actively involving the private sector to fulfill the targets in both Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement. And we also just heard Svante Axelsson describing Sweden's journey and our mission to become the first fossil-free welfare nation by 2045. And he also stressed the role of innovation and the importance of scaling climate solutions to meet the climate targets. And this was also particularly emphasized in the latest IPCC report. And Svante also described very well how the Swedish private sector is taking the lead in reaching our targets and reaching a faster transition in Sweden. And they are really sharing the conviction that the climate transition is not only possible, it also brings possibilities, including new jobs and sustainable economic growth. And this is an important message, I believe. And I think that Sweden's most important contribution to the global climate is not only to showcase how the transition is possible and showcasing some good examples, but actively support countries, including Thailand, with your transformation to become net zero and more circular by both exporting and accelerating existing technologies, but also sharing knowledge and of course our experiences from implementing policy frameworks and roadmaps to become fossil-free. Because although Sweden is a small country, we have the potential to make a large impact worldwide with our cutting-edge innovations, disruptive technologies that we have in place today. And as the Swedish Trade and Invest Council, we're actively working to ensure that these solutions are reaching foreign markets where they are needed and where they are demanded and where their impact can multiply. And we're actively doing this by trying to act as a matchmaker, a facilitator between global climate challenges and Swedish sustainable solutions, by actively mapping the largest emitting sectors and markets and identifying and matchmaking those local challenges with Swedish innovations, and also actively trying to create new partnerships, cross borders and cross sectors to innovate more sustainably and speed up the transition. Because there is really no doubt that the green transition is on top of the agenda for the Swedish private sector. And they're eager to both scale their green solutions globally, but also to reduce their emissions globally. Most Swedish companies that are in the forefront had also set clear net zero targets and work actively to rewire their business models to reduce their carbon footprint in their productions and their operations and their sourcings to enable sustainable and global value chains. And this has become so business critical that many companies today, when they are identifying new market opportunities, they automatically disqualify some markets if they see that there's a lack of sustainable energy sources. Because the energy mix is key for them to reach their climate targets and enable net zero value chains. However, it's not only the energy mix that is critical for the Swedish businesses. The importance of ensuring a just transition and also conducting responsible business cannot be stressed enough. Sweden has one of the lowest corruption rates in the world, and to conduct responsible business conduct and to minimize risks of human rights violations and corruption is really key and also a part of the DNA for many Swedish companies. Hence, Swedish companies aim to locate their investments in markets where they see that they can enable this way of working and also ensure that they can continue acting as responsible stakeholders. And this is also why they highly try to ensure that the best working conditions for their employees by value the importance of labor rights, gender equality, and also the right to unionize. And fresh data that has been conducted by TIN Sweden in our business climate survey that TIN Sweden conducts every second year to understand how Swedish businesses and subsidiaries around the world perceive their business outlooks in their export markets. Data is showing actually a decreasing trend among Swedish business managers in Thailand, where only 16% of Swedish managers in Thailand stated that they have a good or very good view on Thailand business climate at the moment. And 48% stated a neutral view, and 1/3 responded poor or very poor. And a potential reason to this current outlook and this current decreasing trend could possibly be the shortage of renewable energy sources in Thailand. And another factor that the survey showed was that only 21% of the Swedish companies in Thailand noted that local customers consider environmental aspects of products or services in their procurements. So in this context, we hope that we will be able to change this data and turn it into more green numbers in the future. And we would be honored to share insights and to collaborate and contribute to broadening and deepening our commercial ties between the Kingdom of Thailand and Sweden, while also contributing to a greener and more prosperous planet. We see great opportunities and we really look forward to working together, because together we can pioneer the possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Klap Kun Emma. Thank you, ขอบคุณครับ We are very happy to co-host this online forum with you today with Business Sweden. And we very much appreciated having you here at the Thai Embassy with us in Stockholm. Sweden and Thailand has had a long relationship that went back since the 1800s. And we are very excited to see our fruitful relationship going forward, especially in accelerating the green transformation. So we are very happy to have you here with us today.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ขอบคุณครับ So that's the end of our online forum today. Before we part, I would like to greatly extend my appreciation to the Royal Thai Embassy here in Stockholm and also Business Sweden, who has been accommodating in co-hosting this event with us today. And I would also like to extend my sincere appreciation and a massive thank you to the young activists, His Excellency the Minister, the ambassadors, and as well as all our distinguished panelists and speakers who join us today to share their experiences and also their commitment to accelerating the green transition through innovations in sustainability. So me, Satidtanasarn from TNIU, alongside the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm and Business Sweden, would like to thank you, all the attendees as well, for attending too. So just a small note, after this session has ended, you will be automatically linked to our feedback survey form and also our website. Please kindly fill in the form for us. We would love to hear more from the audience, especially about what topics they are interested in hearing from us in the future webinars. And also this session was recorded and then it will be available on demand afterward. And if you would like to contact us, the TNIU, you can easily do so via our website information and also contact email address. So yeah, that's a wrap for today. Thank you again to all the distinguished speakers and all the wonderful audiences. We wish you a great week ahead and we hope we will see you again sometime soon. So good afternoon and สวัสดีครับ